Hi, welcome to Leaving CrazyTown with Finn and Sarah. What are we going to talk about today, Sarah?
Hello, Finn. Hi everybody. We are going to discuss, I want to do this again, rage and
Rage.
rage and what it is, why it gets activated, what's going on underneath. It could be a bunch of things, but we're going to kind of do a deeper dive and connect it to a few other things. And we're going to give some examples of
What
having
is rage?
experience.
What is rage? How is that different from anger? I'm just curious.
I think rage is I think rage is feels uncontrollable. And it's to me the
Oh, like an
heightened anger,
explosion.
explosive. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, the first tool I write is please don't take it out on anybody or anything. That's the thing about rage, is it feels out of control and you want to react immediately.
Yeah.
So that's the distinction I see, that it's really on the pyramid. In the book I had rage at the top, and then I had different things underneath: anger, irritability, agitation, all that stuff, like disguised anger, and then sadness, depression, anxiety. We're going to talk about shame a little bit under that, fear, powerlessness. There's all kinds of things underneath rage, and it could be different for everybody, but we'll give an example and we'll
And
connect
I'll
it.
post a picture of the pyramid.
There you go.
We'll put
And
that
we're
right on there.
doing we're doing Zoom today because it's negative 33 degrees wind chill, and I was afraid to drive to the Cape because my landlord told me I was going to break down and freeze to death.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Anyways, so Finn, would you like to? We're going to kind of break down an example, and I'm sure people can relate to this because, like, because anger, like it says in the big book, resentment is the number one offender. It's really important to learn how to deal with your feelings of anger, because I think anger scares a lot of people. So it's one of the big emotions that we repress. And if you repress it long enough, and I'm spitting, rage will be the result. So, Finn, why don't you go ahead and talk about this example and we'll kind of break it down.
All right.
All
Rage.
right.
Um,
Rage.
No, well, I was enraged the other day, and
Yep.
it was the first time in a long time that I remember getting. And when you said the difference between rage and anger is like that, heightened. I was pacing, and I really felt it. Like I couldn't. I had nowhere to go with it. It had to go somewhere.
Yes.
Basically, short version is I have a bunch of guy friends, and they're cisgender males. For those of you that don't know, that means they identify with the gender that they were born or assigned at birth, like male.
Perfect.
And
Yep.
they have a group, and I wanted to join this group. And somebody decided to like pose, like, let's have a vote if we're gonna include and be inclusive with transgender males, and they voted against it. And not everybody did, but a majority did. And somebody was sharing this with me because they were having a hard time with it in confidence. And I was
Mm-hmm.
fine through the whole thing, like listening to them and helping them. And then when the conversation ended and they left, I was suddenly like through the roof pissed off. And I'm like,
Yes.
F them, blah, blah, whatever. And
Yep.
pacing, and like I was like, I can't, whatever. And I honestly can't remember exactly what was going on for me because I was sort of out of my mind, but I called
Right.
Sarah. So maybe like how I was when you picked up the phone, because some of it I remember pacing the whole time I was talking to you and feeling really mad, but I don't really
Well,
remember.
let's just say it's simply that you were in an intense activation.
Yes,
You
yes,
were in an intense activation.
yes.
And, we talk about activations here being when we get upset or angry, but this was intense where literally you had to move your body.
Yeah.
I mean, that says a lot. You literally couldn't sit with yourself because something very old and very intense got activated.
When I was younger, when I would be enraged, or actually, I think any emotion came out as rage to me when I was younger. And it was like, it pulsates down my arms and I want to punch something. And that's
Yes.
how I was feeling. But I don't do that today. So mostly I was walking my whole body to try to get it
Yes.
to come out.
To
But
move.
yeah, I definitely
Yeah,
wanted to punch something.
I bet.
I
I
don't like how
bet.
it hurts anymore. At 12, it hurt, but it wasn't a big deal. At 55, punching something lasts.
Well, and I think you just said it though, underneath it, this is a different kind of hurt, is like the hurt, right? What do you think when you kind of sat with it for a while? What was the process you went through as far as different feelings that came up?
Well, I started to I felt the rage and anger, and
Yep.
I realized that I was feeling rejected. And
Yes.
technically, this vote wasn't whether we want Finn around or
Wasn't
not.
about you
Yeah,
specifically,
but
right?
that's how I took it. And
Yes.
so I was feeling really rageful, but then rejected. And
Yep.
I knew right away like I was feeling hurt, but
Yes. Yeah.
it just felt too intense to even feel that because I didn't want to be hurt by it. Like it's
No,
hard
but it
to,
just reminds me of my sponsor used to say, under every resentment is a wound.
yeah.
So a piece of what's underneath the rage is hurt, pain, something. And there's the present situation and then there's the past. Okay, go ahead.
And then, there were some feelings of these people know me, they know I'm transgender, and I don't know which of my friends voted against transgender.
Ah,
And so I started to feel really unsafe. Like
safe.
I didn't know who was safe, and people I've relied on and trusted. Suddenly, I felt like my world shifted a little bit. Like, wait,
Yes.
I don't know who's safe and who isn't. Um, and then just like realizing that I wanted to be a part of, and I was feeling really good, and I'm feeling normal. I've never felt more myself than I do
Yes.
now.
Yes.
Um, and you know, when you
So you're
ask me,
talking, go
sorry,
ahead.
go
I
ahead.
was just going to say, so you're talking about another level, which is fear. So
Yeah.
fear of not belonging, fear of maybe not feeling safe, fear of, I can't trust these people, who's who. So all of these fears get activated absolutely underneath all the sadness and hurt. Okay.
And I grew up in crazy and not being able to trust what was said and not trusting myself. And the interesting thing is Sarah asked, when you asked me like, well, when did you feel this way before? I just immediately went to when I was little and in foster home, and
Mm,
the foster parents would always be like, we're a family, you're part of our family, you're part of our family. And I remember going to my foster mother's house as a family for a holiday, and they're doing family photos. So I, believing and trusting what I was told,
of
go
course.
bounding over to get in the family photo and then get told, no, 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 it's only real family. And I got removed.
Oh,
And is right.
okay. I'm having a rage response now.
I know. And I felt in my stomach, like, even when Sarah had asked, like, when you asked me, like, what is it? Immediately I wanted to throw up. And the
Right.
shame, like, the
The
shame is
shame.
interesting because I felt defective, and then I'm a part of, and then I like openly express like my joy of being a part of,
Yes.
and then get in
Yes.
front of everybody removed. And that's how I felt, like really exposed. So I open up, I'm loving, I'm like, yay, I'm part of this group. These are my friends. I'm finally feeling accepted. Or these are
Yes.
my family members finally feeling accepted. And then publicly, in my mind, the situation that happened
Of
with the vote
course.
is I wasn't there, whatever. But
Of course.
it was the same feeling that not only am I defective, now everyone can see that I'm defective.
Yes. Feeling exposed.
Yeah. And the
Yes.
thing is, like, when you and I were first talking about doing this, I'll tell everybody I didn't want to share the story because I feel like with something that elicits like a feeling of shame within me, I don't want to tell anyone. But what I know today is I'm not defective.
No.
I know that my little Finn felt that way, and there were situations that I felt that way. I know I'm not defective, but I also know that when feelings of shame arise, the best way for me to overcome it is to tell people about it, to talk
Yes.
about it. and to get
Yes.
that out. Cause I know in recovery in my 4-step writing stuff, there were things on there I never told anyone. And
Yes.
I just would stare at the sentence on the page trying to read my 5th step because I
Yes.
couldn't, the pain of verbalizing it makes it real. Like if you know
Yes.
that I've been rejected by someone, then you're going to know I'm defective, and it's much easier to hide. But the freedom really comes from sharing, sharing it and
Absolutely.
not staying in that shame space of hiding myself.
I am so glad you're saying that. And we're talking about several topics today, and I'm sure we'll do. And I always say this other episodes on this, but the shame piece is so important. And some of you already know this, but the difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is usually feeling bad about something you did, a behavior, and shame is feeling like something's wrong with you. And so Finn is exactly right. The way to free yourself from some of that shame is to talk about it, because secrets keep shame alive.
And
So that's brilliant.
I also was just having this thought about rage. What I found, like what brings rage up in me the fastest is when I'm trying to be me. I'm trying to live my truth, make decisions for myself, take care of myself. Even a decision like, I don't want to go take care of my dad, or I don't want to go to lunch, whatever. I get enraged because I
Yes.
feel like it's somebody trying to block off who I am. It's like null and voiding like who I am and my needs, and rage like somehow erupts in
Yeah.
those scenarios a lot for me.
Well, I think an old one, and we might have to wrap this video up in a minute, is the feeling dismissed, feeling like someone's dismissing who we are. And like you said, I bet you everybody watching this video can feel when you say, I go running up to get in the picture, like everybody, oh God, I could get tearful. Everybody knows that feeling of a kid's excitement. And
Yeah.
so to be immediately dismissed, a child can't help but make up a story about who they are because of that. And that's part of the healing that some of the tools we're talking about is remembering
But
what
when
other
I'm
people.
calmed down and I know that story affected me, like talking about it today, I can think of that story with the picture and feel like I'm going to throw up and sad. But I think about the
Yes.
current situation and I don't actually have that feeling.
Right.
So that's why, like, when I've calmed down and I'm not in a rage, I know that it was the
Yes.
childhood, and and I started to look at it like this opportunity in this scenario gave me a chance to have those things come out so I can process the feelings that are still there and
Yes.
maybe diffuse them a little bit.
Yes. And unfortunately, Bud, you have unbelievable many opportunities. You have so many opportunities in a week for this stuff to come up. God is using us. So yeah, you're
But could he
absolutely
use
right.
you a little bit? Like, can we
I
can we
know.
have something happen to you this week?
I'm saying this, and probably next week I'm going to have like 8 things happen to me. So I'm bumming, but yes, it's absolutely true. And we can say to ourselves, and we'll just leave you guys with these tools. Like one of the tools is to remember, and we discussed this, it's not about you. Whatever these people decided is about their own fear. And we know that intellectually. It doesn't necessarily mean it feels good. What else? The other things I was just saying, I was just thinking about when we were doing this video is ask yourself, like the process Finn did, if you have an experience of rage, say to yourself, what is happening for me? What am I sad about? What am I fearful about? What do I feel powerless over? Remembering that it's not about you, that you're just responsible for your feelings. And what else? I'm trying to think of tools.
Don't react to the rage.
Don't react
Like,
to the rage.
if
Yes.
you have to get out, go for a walk, get some physical exercise, call somebody, because
Yes.
I had to get it out of my body,
Yes, because it is, and I've said this before, it's an intense bodily sensation that's uncomfortable, but it doesn't mean we can't practice becoming more comfortable. And once we get through it, and like you went through this process, it passed.
And what
And
was
you
really
watch what's
helpful for
underneath.
me was when I called Sarah, she didn't just say, she didn't stop me from venting. Like I needed to vent, and express my rage. And if I hadn't done that, I would have just like shoved it down.
Shut it
And
down.
that release, the physical release, the being able to verbally express what was going on gave me a chance to get to those deeper layers.
Right. Absolutely. You always want to get to the deeper layers. And because that's what this is about healing from codependency, and a lot of codependency. And well, here we go. We'll get into it another episode, is about repressing all those feelings and trying to make everything okay for other people and us. So we're leaving Crazy Town. This is huge.
Fasten your seatbelts, people.
Fasten your seatbelts tightly when you're having a rage, but it's normal and this will pass.